These are very exciting times. We stand at the precipice of a great awakening. And today I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to tell you what that actually means, what's happening energetically that's creating this awakening, what it might mean for you, what you might see for yourself and what you might see around you, what we might see in society. It's kind of up and down actually. So there's a lot to say about that, but possibly the most exciting thing is I'm going to share with you specific information about the astrology of the Great Awakening that's coming from the Galactic High Council. They have shared the planet that is primarily involved, the degrees of the awakening, and the dates that we can expect to see all of this happen. So I'm very excited to get into that with you. If you like astrology, definitely stick around. Before we start, I'm Paige. This is your April energy update. And if you could, please take a moment to like and subscribe. I do really appreciate it. And you can also hit that little bell to be notified of new content as it's uploaded. I'm actually going to begin with the Metatron frequencies from the month of March, because this is going to kind of set the stage for where we are. And if you've been following those, you know that Metatron has been talking about this process moving us towards awakening since April of 2021, when I started doing those channelings on the Insight Timer. If you're not familiar with those, that's a free channeling that I offer on the Insight Timer. It's a very powerful frequency channeling. Very specific frequencies come in every month. I have detailed the frequencies in every one of the recordings that you'll find here on my YouTube channel. You can just look in the description and you'll see the specific frequency and the meaning for each one. So let's go ahead and look at the March frequencies. The theme for March was the restructuring of internal atomic structures to carry higher frequency light. Metatron has been talking about how our light bodies are shifting and that we are in this continual process of shifting and restabilizing at each time at a higher place. So the frequencies that we had in March were 8333, which represented restructuring of internal atomic structures. And the emphasis with the word internal was that this isn't a general restructuring that's happening all around us, that's happening in nature. This is our internal restructuring that's happening. The second frequency was the 5555, which we've had quite a few times. This one represents a pathway that is free of obstruction, that self-propels without resistance. That means that the energy is able to move freely and quickly and continue to move. It continues a forward path. And the third frequency was 3333. We've also had this one quite a bit. This one comes up when we are stabilizing into a higher place, and it represents a higher geometrical order being expressed, meaning we've moved to a higher state. So this is essentially meaning that we are restructuring internally in order to carry higher frequency light, and that we are stabilizing in that place. Now, just putting this into perspective, that was March 15th. We also had the timeline shift going on, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And you can go back to my March energy update for more information about that. But just thinking about everything that's been going on, this restructuring was coming with that timeline shift, but before our awakening moment. But Metatron did say in that March channeling that we stand at the precipice of a great awakening. And that is the first time that Metatron has said that. Metatron has referenced that we are moving towards this awakening, that we are in a process that's been ongoing for many years now. But that was the first time that Metatron has said you are now at the brink. You stand at the brink. So this is incredibly exciting. Now I'm actually going to skip ahead just a bit and give you the message for this month, which comes from the High Council. It's the same High Council that have shared messages the last 2 months. And this High Council represents multiverses. So it is composed of representatives of 45 multiverses. This is sort of a higher echelon of beings. The Galactic Center beings sit on this High Council. So if you're at all familiar with the Galactic Center, it's at the center of our multiverse. They are beings that are about 20 times more evolved than the others that we are usually working with, our sort of usual cosmic neighbors, the Sirians and Arcturians and Pleiadians, and they're all wonderful and very highly evolved beings. This is just for a sense of scale to tell you that this is a higher group that have been coming in. So the High Council this month has this message for us. You are quickly evolving into the new human. Your ability to comprehend much higher levels of information will soon lead to new discoveries in science that will affect your everyday lives. You will find new technologies are developed quite quickly that change the landscape of how you live. So this is our everyday activities. That's what was coming up. It's going to affect us down to the smallest details, what it feels like. You are growing so rapidly that you will require significant adjustments to your lifestyle habits. And this is interesting. For example, you may find that you do not need so much sleep. You may find that you are able to withstand longer periods without food. You may find that you do not tire so quickly when connected to your devices. This had the feeling that we are, I don't want to say we're going to become more like our technology, but somehow our frequency will shift to where we're not in a state of dissonance. It won't be such a drag on our energy to be working with technology. This should not be interpreted as an opportunity to push past human limits. So this is important, but this is a gradual evolutionary change and should be respected as such. Should you attempt to push past limits at this time, you will find that you are not able to withstand the strain. So there is an amount of, even though we may not be as tired or not need as much sleep, and we may not need as much food, we're shifting, but we shouldn't take that to mean that we don't need to sleep anymore and that we can push past limits. Because a lot of people tend to live on those limits, not getting enough sleep chronically, working too much chronically, pushing themselves really beyond what's healthy chronically. So the way I read this is our level of what's healthy is going to shift. It's going to shift a little bit. We won't have the needs that we've had in the past, but we shouldn't assume that we are suddenly like bionic humans and we don't need any of those things. And that if we do that right now, because of the intensity of everything that's going on energetically, you could easily exhaust yourself, actually, which is kind of a paradox, but that's how it is. You could easily exhaust yourself if you do try to do that. Now let's talk about what's actually happening with the Great Awakening. What does that even mean, right? We've been talking about this for years, and we've been in these gradual shifts of consciousness, expansions of consciousness. Now our light bodies are changing and this and that's changing. What really shocked me was that they designated that we were actually at the moment of awakening. So we actually haven't gone through this yet. We are standing at the precipice. And just to backtrack a bit, we did go through the timeline shift in March. So we have just completed a 24,000 year Yuga cycle, which I talked about in that March energy update. That Yuga cycle corresponded with a convergence of timelines that only happens every 24,000 years. That convergence of timelines was a sort of sorting out and reestablishing of timelines. Timelines are pathways of frequency. You are pulled onto a timeline based on the frequency that you carry. So from the end of February until about mid-March, we were actively releasing old timelines and in the process of moving towards the new timeline, or moving into a field of resonance with the new timeline and then connecting fully to the new timeline. So that is actually still ongoing for a lot of people. Out of the population, the guides have told me that about 40% of people did not shift timelines. And there's nothing wrong with not having shifted. It doesn't make you lesser than, or that you did something wrong. It just reflects that you haven't really been reaching higher. People who didn't shift might be people who are really set in their ways, who are really attached to the old way of doing things. They might be people also who are really attached to the earth, who work with the earth. People who are just, content with where they are, don't feel a need to be reaching higher. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I want to emphasize that. We're all on our own journey and there's nothing wrong with that. People who have been reaching higher, who've been looking for spiritual experiences, looking to stretch themselves, looking to expand their consciousness, who have been seeking out those experiences, and particularly if they've been working with channeled frequency, those people definitely were the ones who shifted. So you could think about yourself in that mix and see where you think you might fall. I do think it's fascinating to consider how all of this has played out, right? And how it's progressing from one step to the next, where we've been through this process of preparation, shifts in consciousness, shifts in our light body, moved into the closure of the 24,000 year cycle, and this convergence of timelines, where then we were moving on to higher timelines, and higher frequency timelines have moved in, meaning that these are pathways of frequency that open up new potentials for us. The timeline you are on determines the potentials for your future. And they've said, and I did go into a lot more detail about this in that energy update, so March update, so do watch that if you haven't. But they have said that you can still shift timelines in the future. It won't be impossible. It's just much easier to do it now. Now it's almost like all you have to do is snap your fingers. You know, if you've been putting in the work, if you've made that effort, you're going to move so easily right now. After we settle into our new timelines and are fully connected, that won't happen anymore. Then you'll have to really do some extensive work to move to a higher timeline. Okay, so again, what is the Great Awakening? You know, in light of all of that, right? This is the backdrop. Well, I sat down and I got together with my community and we asked a lot of questions about this. And here's what we were told. And this information came from the High Council once again. The Great Awakening is actually not just about us. The Great Awakening is about the planet primarily. And this I thought was very exciting. They said that it's a leveling up of the frequency of the planet, and it looked, they were giving me an image, it looked like there was just light breaking through the Earth's crust. Huge shift in the planetary energy. Now, one thing that they've been saying for the last few years is that we're moving in tandem with the planet. We have to move together, right? If we're shifting frequency, the planet also has to shift, and vice versa. So the way this has been working is we shift, the planet shifts. It kind of goes back and forth. We sort of bounce back and forth. So we've had these tremendous shifts. We've moved into this higher timeline, and now the planet is making a big shift. So now let's get into the astrology. I asked, is this specifically related to an astrological aspect? And the answer is yes, in a roundabout way. It's related to degrees, and it's related to a certain change that's happening. And so I asked, is it a specific planet? Because we have a lot going on with the astrology right now. And the answer was yes. The planet is Saturn. And this is it corresponds with Saturn's move into Aries, which is going to happen in the month of May. So let me go over some of that with you right now. So first, let's look at Saturn and what they've said about Saturn as a planet. They've said that Saturn is a stabilizing force for our planet. It's very connected with the energy of the Earth. And if you think about all of the celestial bodies that are constantly influencing us and the planet with different frequencies, right? Moving around, coming from different directions in various amounts, Saturn acts as a stabilizing influence. So Saturn is moving out of Pisces and into Aries on May 26th. At that point, this opens up the beginning of the awakening process. It gives initiation to the awakening process, the awakening process doesn't complete until Saturn hits the 3rd degree of Aries. I looked this up, and it's actually going to be quite a while before Saturn hits 3 degrees of Aries because it retrogrades in between. So Saturn enters Aries on May 26th of this year, but it won't hit 3 degrees of Aries until March 12th of next year, of 2026. And it will stay on that degree until March 20th of 2026. So Essentially, we are looking at a period between May 26th of this year to March 20th of next year. That is our period of awakening. Now, it is important to think about what this means for us. And essentially what the guides said is, if you want to think about the planet as our foundation, the planet is a foundational frequency. Remember that the earth is the energy under your feet. It is what you stand on, literally. It's what everything in our world is built upon. So there is a foundation there for us. That foundational frequency is going to elevate in a big way. And what that means is it's like it's bringing up the bottom. It's bringing up the very base. People who have already shifted substantially, who are already working at a higher frequency, aren't going to feel this as much. They've already moved past those lower levels, and they've probably already detached from a lot of that because they've shifted timelines